The telegram arrived on a Thursday, the words as cold as the Montana winter outside her window. Arrangement terminated, accent incomprehensible, mannerisms unsuitable for mining community, return passage not provided. Sophia Kostova stared at the paper until the letters blurred, her gloved fingers trembling not from the chill that permeated the Silver Creek Hotel, but from the realization that she was now stranded 5,000 miles from a home that no longer existed. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. 3 weeks of difficult travel across ocean and continent, the last of her family's hidden fortune spent on passage to America, and now Edgar Whitmore, the man who had promised marriage sight unseen, had dismissed her after a single, uncomfortable dinner where her carefully practiced English had faltered under nervous strain. As snowflakes swirled against the window of the hotel lobby, Sophia calculated her remaining funds with the precision her royal tutors had once demanded. $4.72 would not buy passage back to Varitania. Not that returning was an option. The revolution had claimed her family's palace, her parents' lives, and would claim hers if she were foolish enough to return. The new regime had made it abundantly clear what happened to surviving members of the royal family. "More tea, miss?" The hotel maid's sympathetic glance only deepened Sophia's humiliation. News of her rejection had clearly spread through Silver Creek's gossip channels already. "No, thank you," Sophia replied, her consonants softened by her native accent, each word carefully chosen. She had spent the morning practicing American speech patterns, desperately trying to flatten the aristocratic inflections that had apparently so offended Mr. Whitmore. The lobby door swung open, bringing a gust of snow and the imposing figure of a man Sophia hadn't seen before. Unlike the ostentatious wool suit and gold watch chain Whitmore had sported, this man wore practical layers, a heavy sheepskin coat over sturdy work clothes, his only concession to decoration a silver pin, securing his necktie. His face, weathered by sun and wind, suggested he spent more time outdoors than in drawing rooms. He removed his hat, revealing dark hair streaked with premature silver at the temples, and scanned the lobby with intelligent eyes. Those eyes settled on Sophia with unexpected recognition. "Miss Kostova." His voice was deep but quiet, carrying just to her without announcing their conversation to the entire lobby. Sophia straightened, years of royal posture training, impossible to abandon even in these reduced circumstances. "Yes?" "Nathan Blackwell. I own the Everest Mining Company north of town." He gestured to the telegram still clutched in her hand. "Word travels quickly in small places like Silver Creek. I understand your arrangement with Whitmore has been discontinued." Heat rushed to Sophia's cheeks. How mortifying that her failure was already common knowledge. "It seems my accent makes me unsuitable as a wife in Montana territory." Something flickered across Blackwell's expression. Not pity, which she would have despised, but something more complex. Interest, perhaps even recognition. "Your accent," he said carefully, "sounds Varitanian. Eastern region, if I'm not mistaken. Court-educated." Sophia froze, years of practiced caution warring with shock that this American miner could identify not just her country, but her regional dialect. "You are familiar with Varitania, Mr. Blackwell?" "I spent 3 years overseeing mining operations near Kresimir before the revolution. Your country has some of the richest copper deposits in Eastern Europe." He hesitated, then lowered his voice further. "And no one from the eastern provinces receives that particular education unless they're connected to the royal household." Sophia had never expected to encounter someone in this remote Montana town who could recognize the careful elocution taught exclusively to Varitanian royalty and their household. For 10 years, She had hidden her identity, first fleeing with a loyal lady's maid after the palace was stormed, then in a series of increasingly modest lodgings as their funds dwindled. The last 3 years had been spent in a small Boston apartment, teaching languages to merchants' daughters while scanning newspaper advertisements for any opportunity that might offer security. Edgar Whitmore's advertisement had seemed providential. Successful mine owner seeks educated European bride, must speak English, appreciate culture, and bring refinement to growing Montana community. Age 25 to 30 preferred, passage provided upon acceptance. At 28, with her small savings nearly depleted and her former lady's maid recently deceased, Sophia had carefully composed a letter highlighting her language skills, musical accomplishments, and knowledge of literature and art. She had deliberately omitted her royal background, describing herself instead as the daughter of a government official who had received an exceptional education before political upheaval changed her circumstances. Whitmore's enthusiastic response had included a train ticket and detailed instructions, along with assurances that her background would be valued in Silver Creek, where he was a leading citizen eager to elevate the town's cultural standing. Sophia had sold her few remaining valuable possessions, a pearl hairpin, a small watercolor painting that had once hung in the palace nursery, and embarked on what she believed would be her final journey. The railway journey had grown increasingly arduous as civilization thinned. Boston to Chicago had been comfortable enough in second-class accommodations, but each subsequent leg featured rougher conditions and more curious stares at her careful speech and upright posture. The final stagecoach to Silver Creek had been particularly grueling. 15 hours over mountain passes with 5 other passengers, including a boisterous cattle buyer whose personal hygiene would have scandalized the royal court. Edgar Whitmore had met her at the Silver Creek Hotel yesterday evening, his assessment of her immediate and unconcealed. He was shorter than Sophia had expected, perhaps 5'7", with thinning hair carefully arranged to disguise its retreat, and a waistcoat strained by prosperity. His handshake had been brief, his gaze traveling from her face to her boots with the calculation of a man assessing a purchase. "Miss Kostova, welcome to Silver Creek," he had said, his voice louder than necessary in the modest hotel dining room. "You're more statuesque than your letter suggested." "Thank you for arranging my passage, Mr. Whitmore," Sophia had replied, conscious of how her vowels stretched in ways different from the local speech. "I look forward to becoming acquainted with both you and Silver Creek." His frown had been immediate, almost comical in its exaggeration. "That accent, it's rather pronounced, isn't it? Your letter indicated fluency in English." "I am fluent, Mr. Whitmore. I have taught the language for several years. But yes, my native accent remains." Sophia had maintained the poised expression that had once disguised her thoughts during tedious state dinners with visiting dignitaries. Dinner had proceeded with increasing discomfort. Whitmore asked pointed questions about her household skills, her familiarity with entertaining mining investors, and her views on a wife's proper deference to her husband. Sophia answered carefully, emphasizing her education in managing household staff, organizing social events, and understanding the importance of presenting a unified public appearance. When she inquired about Silver Creek's cultural activities, wondering if her musical training might contribute to community gatherings, Whitmore had dismissed the question. "Silver Creek has little use for European refinements, Miss Kostova. We need practical women who understand frontier realities." By dinner's conclusion, his disappointment had been evident. He escorted her to the hotel's front desk, arranging for a single night's accommodation. "We'll speak tomorrow," he had said, though his tone suggested the conversation would not be pleasant. And now, barely 12 hours later, the telegram had arrived, ending an arrangement before it truly began. Sophia was stranded in a remote mining town. her funds nearly exhausted, her future evaporated like breath in the Montana winter. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Now Nathan Blackwell stood before her with unexpected knowledge of her homeland and an implicit recognition of her background that sent fear coursing through her veins. Her identity was not merely a matter of social standing, it was a matter of survival. The new Varitanian government had placed a substantial bounty on the heads of surviving royal family members. "Mr. Blackwell," Sophia said with carefully measured calm, "I believe you are mistaken about my background. I was merely fortunate to receive an education typically reserved for more privileged citizens." Blackwell's expression remained neutral, but his eyes, a striking grey that reminded Sophia of Varitanian mountain mist, reflected understanding. "Of course, my apologies for the presumption." He glanced around the hotel lobby, then continued with deliberate casualness. "Miss Kostova, regardless of your specific background, I understand you're now in a difficult position. I have a business proposition that might interest you." Sophia's eyebrows rose slightly. "What sort of proposition, Mr. Blackwell?" "The Everest Mining Company has expanded significantly over the past year. We've recently secured contracts with Eastern manufacturers that require extensive correspondence in multiple languages. I need someone who can handle this correspondence with appropriate formality, maintain financial records, and eventually help manage relations with our European investors. A business proposal. Not marriage, not charity, but employment-based. On skills she actually possessed." Sophia felt a flicker of cautious hope. "You're offering me a position as a secretary?" "As a business administrator," Blackwell corrected. "The salary would be $35 monthly, with accommodations provided in a small but comfortable cabin on the mine property. Most of our administrative staff live on site due to the distance from town and winter travel difficulties." $35 monthly was more than Sophia had earned teaching languages in Boston, but suspicion tempered her relief. "Mr. Blackwell, while I appreciate the offer, I must ask, why me? You know nothing about me beyond hearsay from a man who found me unsuitable." A subtle smile crossed his face. "Whitmore found you unsuitable because your refinement made him uncomfortable. You speak at least 2 languages fluently, clearly have experience with formal correspondence, and possess the kind of education that suggests familiarity with financial management. Those are precisely the qualities I need." He paused. "And frankly, anyone Whitmore finds disappointing is likely to be exceptional." The unexpected compliment, delivered so matter-of-factly, caught Sophia off guard. For the first time since arriving in Silver Creek, she felt seen rather than merely assessed. "I should mention," Blackwell continued, "that the position would involve interaction with men from various backgrounds. Engineers, foremen, investors. Some might question a woman in such a role, particularly one with," he hesitated, "foreign mannerisms. Silver Creek has its share of narrow perspectives." "I am familiar with navigating difficult social terrain, Mr. Blackwell." Years of diplomatic training had taught Sophia to handle everything from insulting foreign ambassadors to treasonous courtiers with outward composure. Prejudiced minors seemed a manageable challenge by comparison. "I thought you might be." Something in his tone suggested he understood more than he was saying. "If you're interested, I can provide details about the specific responsibilities. The position would begin immediately. We have correspondence awaiting attention and financial records that require organization." Sophia considered her options with the strategic assessment once applied to matters of state. Remaining in Silver Creek without employment, was impossible. Returning east might be feasible if she could earn enough for passage, but would mean starting again in yet another city where her skills were undervalued and her background a dangerous secret. This unexpected offer provided immediate security and utilized abilities she actually possessed. "I would like to know more about the specific duties involved," she said, decision already forming. For the next 15 minutes, Blackwell outlined the responsibilities: managing correspondence with equipment suppliers and metal buyers, maintaining payroll records for 47 employees, organizing the company's financial documentation, and eventually handling communication with European investors interested in expanding American mining operations. "The previous clerk left the records in disarray," Blackwell admitted. He was more concerned with appearing important than maintaining accurate accounts. "Disorder in records is like disorder in a royal household," Sophia observed before she could stop herself. "Small inefficiencies eventually create significant problems." If Blackwell noted her telling comparison, he didn't comment on it. "Exactly. The situation requires someone who understands systems and proper procedures." One practical concern remained. "Mr. Blackwell, what assurance do I have of the position's stability? I have no connections here, no resources should the arrangement prove temporary." It was a bold question from someone in her desperate situation, but Sophia had learned through bitter experience that uncertainty was as dangerous as immediate hardship. "A reasonable question. I propose a 1-month trial period, after which we'll assess the arrangement. If either of us finds it unsuitable, I will provide an additional month's salary and a reference letter detailing your competencies." He paused. "If it proves satisfactory, as I expect it will, we can discuss a more permanent arrangement with potential for advancement as our operations expand." The terms were more than fair, generous even by American employment standards. Sophia had heard enough about typical working conditions from immigrants in Boston to recognize unusual consideration when offered. "When would you want me to begin?" she asked. "Tomorrow morning, if possible. Winter makes travel between town and the mine unpredictable. My foreman, Frank Hollister, will meet you here at 7 o'clock with the company wagon. Pack whatever you need immediately. We can arrange for your remaining belongings afterward." As Blackwell rose to leave, Sophia made a decision. "Mr. Blackwell," he paused, waiting. "Thank you for seeing value where others saw only difference." Something flickered in his expression, recognition, perhaps even admiration. "Miss Kostova, in my experience, the most valuable things are rarely recognized by those seeking only the familiar." With a slight bow that seemed incongruous from an American mine owner, he departed, leaving Sophia with an unexpected future unfolding before her. After Blackwell left, Sophia remained seated in the hotel lobby, the rejection telegram still in her hand. She smoothed it thoughtfully, then deliberately tore it into tiny pieces, watching as the painful words disintegrated. 3 years ago, she had been teaching conjugations to disinterested merchant daughters. Yesterday, she had been a mail-order bride facing rejection. Today, she was about to become a business administrator for a mining operation. Life's reversals continued to astonish, even after all she had experienced. The lost princess of Varitania would now manage correspondence and accounts for an American mining company. Her royal tutors, who had insisted she learn financial management alongside 5 languages and diplomatic history, would perhaps be vindicated after all. As Sophia organized her belongings in the small hotel room, deciding what to pack for immediate needs at the mining camp, she heard a sharp knock at her door. Opening it revealed a well-dressed woman in her 40s, her expression severe, her posture rigid with disapproval. "Miss Kostova, I'm Victoria Whitmore, Edgar's sister." Without waiting for an invitation, she swept into the room, assessing Sophia and her modest luggage with a critical eye. "I understand you've accepted a position with Nathan Blackwell." News truly did travel at remarkable speed in Silver Creek. Word of my employment has spread quickly, Sophia observed, deliberately emphasizing her accent rather than attempting to hide it. Victoria Whitmore's lips thinned. Silver Creek is a small community, Miss Kostova. We maintain certain standards of propriety. A single woman living at a mining camp, working among men. It's entirely inappropriate. I appreciate your concern, Mrs. Whitmore, but Mr. Blackwell has offered me a respectable position that utilizes my actual skills. My brother was perhaps hasty in his assessment, Victoria continued, as if Sophia hadn't spoken. Your foreign ways startled him, but I'm certain a period of adjustment could be arranged. Your unusual accent might even be considered exotic rather than problematic with proper context. The suggestion that she might still be acceptable as Edgar Whitmore's wife, if properly presented, was more insulting than the original rejection. Sophia drew herself to her full height, unconsciously adopting the posture that had once signified royal authority. Mrs. Whitmore, I have accepted employment with Mr. Blackwell. I have no interest in being reconsidered like a purchase initially rejected for cosmetic flaws. She moved toward the door, opening it in clear dismissal. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have preparations to make. Victoria Whitmore didn't move, her expression hardening. You misunderstand your situation, Miss Kostova. Silver Creek society is carefully structured. No respectable family will welcome you if you pursue this inappropriate arrangement with Blackwell. You'll be ostracized. As I came here seeking financial security rather than social acceptance, that's hardly my primary concern. Sophia kept her tone even despite mounting indignation. After surviving the violent overthrow of her family's 3-century reign, small-town American social rejection seemed a manageable adversity. Nathan Blackwell is not like other mine owners, Victoria warned, finally moving toward the door. He employs Chinese workers alongside whites. He allows a Mexican as an engineer. Now he intends to install a foreign woman with incomprehensible speech in a business position. It demonstrates a troubling disregard for proper order. Sophia couldn't suppress a smile. On the contrary, Mrs. Whitmore, it demonstrates excellent judgment regarding skills rather than superficial characteristics. Good day. As Victoria Whitmore departed with a final disapproving glare, Sophia closed the door and leaned against it, heart pounding with a mixture of anxiety and unexpected exhilaration. Tomorrow would bring challenges. Working in a man's domain would require resilience and careful navigation. But for the first time since the revolution had claimed her former life, she felt a sense of possibility based on her actual capabilities rather than the desperation of diminishing options. That evening, eating a simple dinner alone in the hotel restaurant, Sophia became aware of curious glances and whispered conversations. Word of Whitmore's rejection had clearly spread, as had news of her unexpected employment with his business rival. Rather than shrinking under the scrutiny, Sophia ate with deliberate calm, her posture perfect, her movements precise with the unconscious grace instilled through years of protocol training. When she returned to her room, she opened the small, leather-bound journal that had accompanied her from Varitania to Boston and now to this remote Montana mining town. It was one of her few remaining possessions from her former life, its cover emblazoned with the royal crest, now carefully obscured by a leather sleeve. Today, she wrote, I was deemed unsuitable as a bride due to my accent, but valuable as a business administrator because of the education that created it. Perhaps when one door to the future closes, it is because we are meant to step through another, even when that door leads to a mining office rather than a respectable marriage. She closed the journal and continued preparing for tomorrow. The rejected mail-order bride would vanish. In her place would emerge the business administrator of the Everest Mining Company, ready to prove that the very qualities Edgar Whitmore found objectionable Her foreign refinement, her distinctive speech, her formal mannerisms might actually become her greatest assets. The royal past she kept hidden had trained her for diplomatic challenges, financial management, and navigating treacherous social waters. Those skills, stripped of their aristocratic context, would now serve her in ways her tutors could never have imagined when they drilled a young princess on proper account-keeping alongside protocols for receiving foreign dignitaries. As snow continued falling outside her window, blanketing Silver Creek in white silence, Sophia felt a strange peace settle over her. Tomorrow would begin a new chapter in a life already filled with unexpected turns. This time, however, she would be building on her true strengths rather than hiding them. Whether Nathan Blackwell had truly recognized her royal background or merely her valuable skills remained unclear, but either way, he had seen possibility where Edgar Whitmore had seen only a foreign oddity to be rejected. Tomorrow, at precisely 7 o'clock, she would meet Frank Hollister with her belongings packed and her royal posture perfectly intact. The princess in exile would become a mining company administrator, and perhaps in this strange new role, she might finally find a place where her past could inform her future without endangering it. The Everest Mining Company, perched on the northern slope of Granite Ridge, a sprawling operation that looked far more organized than Sophia had expected. She sat beside Frank Hollister, the mine's foreman, as the wagon climbed the steep, rutted road that switchbacked up the mountainside. The early morning air bit through her woolen coat, but the two sturdy horses seemed unbothered by either the cold or the gradient. Hollister was a weathered man of few words, though his occasional comments revealed deep respect for Nathan Blackwell. "Mr. Blackwell runs things differently," he explained as they passed a series of well-maintained outbuildings. "Safety comes first, then efficiency. Lost some men early on who thought he was too cautious. Now we haven't had a serious accident in 8 months. Sophia noted the difference between the Everest property and glimpses she'd caught of other mining operations as they departed Silver Creek. No debris littered the grounds here. The support timbers visible at tunnel entrances looked solid and new. Workers moved with purpose rather than desperate haste. "Most mine owners just want fast profits," Hollister continued, guiding the horses around a particularly steep bend. "Mr. Blackwell's building something to last. That's why the books and correspondence matter to him. Says you can't build a future on shaky foundations, whether it's tunnels or finances." They crested the final turn, and Sophia had her first view of what would be her new home. The Everest Mining Company's main operations centered around a large processing building and equipment shed, with smaller structures arranged in a rough semicircle. Men moved between buildings carrying tools and materials. Near the edge of the clearing stood a modest cabin with smoke rising from its chimney. "That'll be your place," Hollister said, nodding toward the cabin. "Used to be the surveyor's quarters before we built him a proper office closer to the main shaft, Mrs. Hollister. Spent yesterday getting it ready for you." He glanced at Sophia. "My wife," he clarified. "She manages the boarding house for the single workers down yonder." He pointed to a larger building set apart from the main operations. Before Sophia could respond, Nathan Blackwell emerged from what appeared to be the main office building and strode toward the wagon. In daylight, bundled against the cold, he looked even more imposing than he had in the hotel lobby. His movements were efficient and purposeful, his gaze constantly assessing the operations around him. "Miss Kostova, welcome to Everest." He helped her down from the wagon with a brief, practical courtesy. "I trust the journey up wasn't too arduous." "Not at all," Sophia replied, her breath clouding in the cold air. "Mr. Hollister has been an excellent guide." Blackwell nodded to his foreman. "Frank, could you have someone bring Miss Kostova's trunk to her cabin? I'd like to show her the office immediately." "Of course, sir. Lee's not on shift yet. I'll send him." Hollister tipped his hat to Sophia before driving toward the stables. "Lee?" Sophia asked as Blackwell led her toward the office building. Lee Wei, one of our most valuable workers, came here from California after working on the Transcontinental Railroad. Blackwell's expression hardened slightly. Most mining operations won't hire Chinese workers for anything beyond the most dangerous tasks. Their loss is our gain. Lee has an engineer's mind and more dedication than most of the drifters who come through expecting to get rich overnight. The main office building housed 3 rooms, a general area with drafting tables for the engineers, a small private office for Blackwell, and what would be Sophia's domain, a room filled with filing cabinets, a large desk currently buried under. Stacks of papers and bookshelves crowded with ledgers in various states of disarray. As you can see, Blackwell said, gesturing to the chaos, Porter's departure left things in considerable disorder. He fell behind on organizing receipts, filing correspondence, and updating the main ledgers. Sophia surveyed the room, mentally cataloging the challenges. She had once reorganized the royal archive after a careless minister had rearranged historical treaties according to his own incomprehensible system. This looked manageable by comparison. When was the last accurate accounting completed? She asked. And do you have a current inventory of supplies and equipment? Last accurate accounting was November, before Porter's drinking problem interfered with his work. As for inventory, Blackwell grimaced. We track ore production meticulously, but supply and equipment record-keeping has been inconsistent at best. Sophia removed her gloves and picked up the nearest ledger, quickly scanning the entries. The handwriting deteriorated. Noticeably in the later pages, some entries illegible or obviously incorrect. Several pages showed evidence of being altered after initial recording. Mr. Blackwell, I'll need to speak with your suppliers directly and conduct a physical inventory before I can establish accurate records. This ledger shows purchases of blasting powder that don't align with any production records I see here. Blackwell's expression grew serious. That confirms my suspicions. I believe Porter may have been selling supplies on the side or recording phantom purchases and pocketing the difference. The discrepancy suggests systematic theft rather than mere disorganization, Sophia agreed, falling easily into the analytical mindset her financial tutors had instilled. I'll need complete authority to implement new procedures for purchasing and inventory control. You have it. Anyone who resists your protocols can explain their objections to me. He studied her with newfound respect. Most people would be overwhelmed by this mess. You immediately identified the core problem. Patterns of financial misconduct are often disguised as incompetence, Sophia replied. Her father, the king, had once uncovered a treasury minister's embezzlement scheme, hiding behind deliberately chaotic record-keeping. In my experience, deliberate disorder often conceals deliberate fraud. Her first week at Everest tested Sophia's organizational skills and diplomatic training in equal measure. The immediate crisis was payroll. Miners expecting their wages on Saturday would not tolerate delays, regardless of accounting confusion. Working 14-hour days, she managed to reconstruct enough accurate records to ensure proper payment, though she discovered Porter had been shorting some of the Chinese and Mexican workers. These men consistently received less than others with similar positions and experience, she pointed out to Blackwell late Friday night as they reviewed the figures by lamplight. There's no documentation justifying the discrepancy. Blackwell's expression darkened. Correct it. Every man here earns based on position, experience, and performance, not origin or language. By the third week, Sophia had established new systems for everything from supply requisitions to time tracking. Each department head now submitted standardized forms rather than scrawled notes. Purchase orders required signatures from both requesting departments and final approval. Every supply cabinet had inventory sheets that must be updated with each withdrawal. Not everyone embraced the changes. Reynolds, the head engineer, initially resisted the unnecessary paperwork until Blackwell quietly reminded him that the same precision he demanded in tunnel measurements applied equally to resource management. Li Wei proved an unexpected ally. Fluent in English and exceptionally detail-oriented, he helped Sophia conduct the physical inventory, his memory for equipment conditions and locations proving invaluable. When Sophia created a new organization, System for the Tool Sheds, Li ensured the workers maintained it properly. "Mr. Wei, why aren't you in a management position?" Sophia asked one afternoon as they reconciled the dynamite inventory. "Your skills clearly exceed your current role." Li gave her a measured look. "Miss Kostova, you've been here 3 weeks and already face resistance because you're a woman with a foreign accent. Imagine the reaction to a Chinese foreman." "Mr. Blackwell doesn't seem concerned with such prejudices." "Mr. Blackwell is unusual. He judges by capability, not category." Li carefully recorded the last case of blasting caps, but even he must consider practicalities. "Some men would quit rather than take orders from me, regardless of my qualifications." Sophia considered his words as she walked back to the office. Her own position had indeed generated tension. During her few visits to town for supplies, miners' wives had viewed her with open suspicion. The bank manager in Silver Creek had initially refused to honor her signature on Everest drafts until Blackwell personally intervened. Even Mrs. Hollister, otherwise friendly, had gently suggested Sophia might want to wear less formal attire to appear more approachable. 1 month into her tenure, Sophia's systems were functioning smoothly enough that she could finally address the backlog of correspondence. Among the unopened letters, she discovered communications from potential investors in New York and London, all unanswered for months. "Mr. Blackwell," she said, entering his office with the letters in hand, "we've missed significant investment opportunities. The Wellington Group in London expressed interest in funding expansion of the North Tunnel, but their letter is dated December with a request for response by January." Blackwell looked up from the maps he was studying, frowning. Porter never mentioned any correspondence from Wellington. What exactly were they proposing? Sophia summarized the offer: substantial capital investment in exchange for a 15% stake in future profits from the expanded operation. "Based on the production projections you showed me last week, this would have been extremely favorable terms. Contact them immediately, explain the situation with our previous clerk, and see if their interest remains." Blackwell ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. What else did Porter forget to mention? The answer came 2 days later, when Sophia discovered a notice from the territorial tax assessor warning of impending penalties for unpaid property taxes. According to the records, Everest hadn't paid in 6 months, despite ledger entries indicating the payments had been made. "He was embezzling more systematically than we realized," Blackwell said grimly when she showed him the notice. "Marking payments in our ledgers but never actually sending the funds. We need to conduct a full audit," Sophia advised. "I can't trust any of the existing records now." Blackwell's jaw tightened. "Do it. Whatever resources you need, they're yours." The audit consumed another 2 weeks of intensive work. Sophia created new ledgers from scratch, verifying every transaction against bank records, receipts, and physical evidence. The picture that emerged was troubling. Porter had been skimming funds for at least a year, possibly embezzling over $3,000 through false supply orders, tax payment diversions, and payroll manipulation. "We should notify the sheriff," Sophia insisted when she presented her findings. "This is criminal activity." Blackwell's expression was conflicted. Porter has likely fled the territory by now, possibly to California. Sheriff Caldwell has no jurisdiction there, and frankly, he's more concerned with saloon brawls than financial crimes. "Then we should engage a Pinkerton agent. The agency specializes in tracking such criminals across state lines. Blackwell studied the meticulous documentation she'd assembled. Perhaps, but our immediate priority must be stabilizing the company's finances. These tax penalties could cripple operations if not addressed immediately. Sophia had anticipated this concern. I've already drafted a payment plan to propose to the assessor with an initial good faith payment to demonstrate our intention to resolve the matter. Based on current production and operating costs, we can clear the debt in 4 months without disrupting operations. Blackwell looked at her with undisguised admiration. You've exceeded every expectation, Miss Kostova. I'm beginning to think Whitmore's rejection was the most fortunate turn of events in Everest's history. The compliment warmed her more than it should have. Over the past month, Sophia had developed deep respect for Nathan Blackwell's integrity and vision. Unlike Edgar Whitmore's pompous self-importance, Blackwell's authority stemmed from genuine capability and principled leadership. He consulted her opinions on business matters without condescension and implemented her suggestions without needing to claim them as his own ideas. Their working relationship had settled into a productive pattern. Early mornings found them reviewing the previous day's operations over coffee in the office. Throughout the day, they addressed issues independently, in their respective domains, reconvening in late afternoon to align their efforts. Often, these afternoon meetings extended into early evening discussions about future possibilities for the mine. It was during one such evening conversation, 6 weeks after her arrival, that Blackwell first mentioned partnership. The Wellington Group has responded favorably to your letter, he said, handing her their telegram. They're sending a representative next month to discuss investment terms. Sophia scanned the message, pleased that her carefully worded explanation had reopened the opportunity. This could fund the expansion without straining our operating capital. Their terms remain quite generous. Blackwell studied her thoughtfully. Which raises an important consideration. Your trial period ended last week. I believe we should discuss a more permanent arrangement. I would be pleased to continue as business administrator, Mr. Blackwell. The position has proven both challenging and satisfying. I'm proposing more than continued employment, Miss Kostova. He leaned forward, his expression serious. I'm suggesting a junior partnership, 5% ownership stake in the Everest operation, with commensurate profit sharing. Sophia stared at him, certain she'd misunderstood. Partnership? But I have no capital to invest. You've already invested. Something more valuable than money, skill and dedication that saved this operation from potential ruin. The embezzlement might have continued undetected until Everest faced bankruptcy. He slid a document across the desk. I've had my attorney draw up the preliminary agreement. Review it carefully, of course. Sophia's hands trembled slightly as she accepted the papers. Women rarely owned property in their own names, let alone held partnership in mining operations. In Varitania, even as a princess, she would have been legally prohibited from such direct business involvement. This is most unexpected, Mr. Blackwell. The mining industry rewards those who recognize value others miss, Miss Kostova, whether in ore veins or human capability. His expression softened slightly. Consider it carefully. We can discuss any questions or concerns you have tomorrow. That night in her cabin, Sophia read the partnership agreement 3 times by lamplight. The terms were straightforward and fair, 5% ownership in exchange for continued management of business operations, with provisions for profit sharing, decision input, and clearly defined responsibilities. The arrangement could be dissolved by either party with appropriate notice and compensation. As she prepared for bed, a knock at her door startled her. Visitors after dark were unusual at Everest, where work shifts and sleep schedules were strictly respected. Wrapping her robe tightly, she approached the door cautiously. Who is it? Mrs. Hollister, Miss Kostova, I apologize for the late hour, but I have urgent news. Sophia opened the door to find the foreman's wife on her porch, expression troubled. What's happened? There's talk in town. Edgar Whitmore has been making accusations about you and Mr. Blackwell, improper arrangements he calls it. He's written to the bank in Helena, suggesting the Everest operation is financially unsound due to questionable management decisions. Mrs. Hollister twisted her hands anxiously. My cousin works at the hotel. She overheard Whitmore telling associates he intends to force Mr. Blackwell to sell by undermining his credit and reputation. I see. Sophia's mind raced with implications. Thank you for bringing this to my attention, Mrs. Hollister. Does Mr. Blackwell know? Frank is telling him now. She hesitated. Miss Kostova, people here respect Mr. Blackwell. What he's built means jobs and stability for families like ours. Whitmore's always been jealous of Everest's success. His own mine has half the output despite twice the investment, but using you to create scandal, it's unconscionable. After Mrs. Hollister departed, Sophia sat at her small writing desk, considerations swirling through her mind. Whitmore's tactics were personal and vindictive. By accepting Blackwell's partnership offer, she would further inflame the situation, potentially damaging Everest's standing with conservative investors. But refusing the offer out of fear would betray everything she valued about her new life in Montana: the autonomy, the respect earned through capability, the chance to build something meaningful. At the palace, she had been taught that a royal never retreats from a worthy challenge, that courage often means standing firm when others would withdraw. Dawn found her still at the desk. Decision made, a carefully drafted counter-proposal before her. When she arrived at the office, Blackwell was already there, expression grim as he read a letter bearing the Helena Bank's letterhead. I assume you've heard about Whitmore's allegations, he said without preamble. Mrs. Hollister informed me last night. Sophia placed a document on the desk. I've reviewed your partnership offer, Mr. Blackwell. I'd like to propose a slight modification. His eyebrows rose in surprise. You still wish to proceed despite Whitmore's attempts to create scandal? Whitmore rejected me for being too foreign. I won't now reject a legitimate opportunity for the very quality he found so objectionable. She indicated her proposal. I suggest 8% partnership rather than 5%, with the additional 3% to be earned through successful resolution of the tax situation and securing the Wellington investment. I've outlined specific targets that would trigger the increase. Blackwell stared at her, then let out a surprised laugh. Most people would be requesting less visibility, not greater commitment, under these circumstances. I'm not most people, Mr. Blackwell, and I believe the best response to attempts at intimidation is to proceed with even greater determination. She met his gaze steadily. Whitmore's tactics reveal his character, not ours. I won't allow his pettiness to determine my future any more than I allowed his rejection to define my worth. Blackwell studied her counterproposal, a slow smile spreading across his face. 8% contingent on performance metrics of your own design. You drive a harder bargain than the Wellington Group, Miss Kostova. Consider it incentive alignment, Mr. Blackwell. My success becomes inseparable from Everest's, precisely what any good partnership should establish. He extended his hand across the desk. We have an agreement then, partner. As they shook hands, Sophia felt a profound sense of vindication. 2 months ago, she had arrived in Silver Creek as a mail-order bride, valued primarily for her potential, decorative qualities. Today, she stood as a businesswoman, claiming her rightful place through demonstrated capability. The path ahead would undoubtedly hold challenges. Whitmore's attempts to undermine them were just beginning. Conservative elements in town already viewed her position with suspicion. The mining industry itself remained overwhelmingly male-dominated and resistant to change. But for perhaps the first time since fleeing Varitania, Sophia faced the future, without constraints imposed by others' limited expectations. The foreign accent and formal mannerisms that Edgar Whitmore had found so objectionable had become her greatest assets, recognized and valued by a man whose vision extended beyond conventional boundaries. As if reading her thoughts, Blackwell said quietly, "We're going to face considerable opposition. You realize not everyone is ready for a female mine owner, even a partial one." Sophia smiled, determination settling into certainty. "Then they'll simply have to adapt, Mr. Blackwell. Progress rarely occurs by waiting for everyone to be comfortable with change." News of Sophia's partnership in the Everest Mining Company spread through Silver Creek with the speed of a tunnel collapse. By midday, Blackwell's attorney had filed the official documentation with the county clerk, making the arrangement a matter of public record. By evening, the town hummed with speculation, judgment, and in some quarters, outrage. Sophia experienced the first direct confrontation the following morning when she visited the general store to arrange for office supplies. Mrs. Grayson, the store owner's wife, had always been coolly professional during Sophia's previous visits. Today, the woman didn't bother disguising her disapproval. "We don't have an account for you personally, Miss Kostova," Mrs. Grayson said, when Sophia presented her Everest requisition form. "Our arrangement is with Mr. Blackwell." "This is an Everest Mining Company purchase," Sophia explained patiently. "As you can see, the form bears our company letterhead and my signature as authorized partner." Mrs. Grayson sniffed. "My husband deals with Mr. Blackwell directly on business matters. Perhaps you should return with him." Sophia felt heat rise in her cheeks, but kept her voice steady. Her royal training in controlling emotional display had never been more valuable. "Mrs. Grayson, this document authorizes a business transaction between Grayson's General Store and Everest Mining Company. My signature carries the full legal authority of the company. If you prefer to lose Everest's considerable business over personal objections to my position, that is certainly your choice." The woman's eyes widened at the calm ultimatum. Everest's monthly orders represented a significant portion of the store's income. "I'll need to consult with my husband." "Of course. While you do, I'll make a list of alternative suppliers in Helena who might accommodate our needs." Sophia removed a small notebook from her handbag and began writing with deliberate precision. 10 minutes later, Sophia departed with the ordered supplies and a tense but completed transaction. As she arranged for the items to be loaded into the Everest wagon, she noticed Edgar Whitmore watching from across the street, his expression a mixture of displeasure and calculation. "Miss Kostova," he called, crossing toward her, "a moment of your time." Sophia steeled herself for the encounter. Whitmore had altered his appearance since their brief acquaintance, his hair now more carefully arranged, his attire even more ostentatiously expensive. The changes only emphasized the artifice of his self-presentation. "Mr. Whitmore," she acknowledged him with a brief nod. "I'm rather pressed for time." "I'll be direct then." He lowered his voice, though his tone remained pompous. "This arrangement with Blackwell, it's causing considerable talk. For your own reputation, you should reconsider." "My reputation is built on competence and integrity, Mr. Whitmore. Neither is compromised by business partnership." His expression hardened. "Don't be naive. A single woman living at a mining camp, now claiming ownership. People draw conclusions. The respectable families of Silver Creek are already limiting contact." "I came to Montana for opportunity, not social acceptance," Sophia replied. "If you're concerned about propriety, perhaps consider how your public campaign against Everest reflects on your own character. I'm protecting my investments, Whitmore said, pretense of concern vanishing. Blackwell's progressive notions may play well with Eastern investors looking to appear forward-thinking, but they undermine the established order here. Mining communities function through clear hierarchies and traditional roles. Yet Everest consistently outproduces the Golden Summit mine despite your larger initial investment and more traditional approach, Sophia observed. Perhaps the established order deserves reconsideration. Whitmore's face flushed. Blackwell got lucky with his initial strike, but luck doesn't sustain operations. When the Wellington Group learns about his unorthodox management decisions, including making his mail-order bride reject a business partner, they'll reconsider their investment. The Wellington Group values results above convention, Mr. Whitmore. Our production reports and financial statements will speak more persuasively than gossip. Sophia nodded to the worker who had finished loading the supplies. Now, if you'll excuse me, Everest's business requires my attention. As the wagon pulled away, Sophia's composed expression masked genuine concern. Whitmore's mention of the Wellington Group wasn't idle talk. If he actively interfered with their pending investment, Everest's expansion plans could be jeopardized. The mine's operations were stable, but not inexhaustible. Without development of the northern tunnel, production would eventually decline. Back at Everest, she found Blackwell in intense discussion with Reynolds and the other engineers over a new ore sample. The excitement in their voices told her something significant had been discovered. Silver content far exceeds our expectations, Blackwell explained when she joined them. This sample came from the exploratory shaft in the North Tunnel, exactly where we hope to expand with the Wellington investment. Reynolds, whose initial resistance to Sophia had gradually transformed into grudging respect, pointed to crystalline structures in the rock. See these formations? They typically indicate a larger deposit nearby. If the Wellington funding comes through for proper expansion, we could be looking at a major strike. This timing is fortuitous, Sophia said, meeting Blackwell's gaze. But we may face additional challenges with Wellington. Whitmore directly referenced their investment during our encounter in town. Blackwell's expression darkened. What exactly did he say? Sophia recounted the conversation precisely, including Whitmore's implied threat to undermine their arrangement with the investors. He's clearly attempting to interfere, Blackwell said. We should prepare contingencies in case the Wellington representative arrives with preconceptions. Agreed. Blackwell glanced at Reynolds. Continue the exploratory work, but quietly. No discussions of the findings outside our immediate team. After the engineers departed, he turned back to Sophia. Whitmore's becoming more than a nuisance. Hollister heard rumors he's attempting to purchase adjacent land claims to block our expansion. Can he do that legally? If he files the claims properly, yes. Mining law favors those who stake first, regardless of existing nearby operations. Blackwell ran a hand through his hair in frustration. The northern expansion is crucial to Everest's future. These new samples confirm what I've suspected. We're on the edge of a significant deposit that could sustain operations for years. Over the next 2 weeks, Sophia and Blackwell worked to solidify Everest's position before the Wellington representative arrived. She prepared comprehensive financial reports documenting the mine's efficiency improvements and profit margins. Blackwell accelerated the exploratory shaft work, gathering more samples to demonstrate the expansion's potential. Meanwhile, Li Wei proved an unexpected asset in countering Whitmore's machinations. His connections among Chinese workers at other mines provided valuable intelligence about Whitmore's attempts to purchase surrounding claims. He offered double standard rates for the northeastern parcel, Li reported during an evening strategy session in Blackwell's office. But Johnson at the Mercury mine says the owner refused. He's holding out for more, or considering other buyers. "Well, which owner is this?" Blackwell asked, marking the parcel on his map. "Thomas Montgomery," Sophia replied, recognizing the name from county records she'd reviewed. "Harrison Montgomery's father. Harrison is one of Whitmore's investors." Blackwell looked up sharply. "That complicates matters. Family loyalty might prevail over financial interest." "Not necessarily," Sophia said thoughtfully. "According to town records, Thomas Montgomery filed for separate business interests from his son last year. There may be tension we could leverage." "Find out what you can," Blackwell instructed Lee. "Discreetly." Lee nodded. "The Montgomery cook plays cards with our supply wagon driver. I'll ensure the conversation turns appropriately." 3 days. Before the Wellington representative's scheduled arrival, Leeway's intelligence network delivered crucial information. Thomas Montgomery and Edgar Whitmore had indeed experienced a significant falling out over a previous mining venture, where Whitmore had allegedly misrepresented investment returns. The northeastern parcel remained available, with Montgomery specifically reluctant to sell to Whitmore despite the premium offered. "We should approach Montgomery directly," Sophia suggested during their evening strategy session. "Not to purchase outright, but to propose a joint development arrangement. He maintains ownership while we provide expertise and labor for exploration, with profit sharing on any discoveries." Blackwell considered the suggestion. "It addresses his financial interests while allowing him to rebuff Whitmore without seeming petty. But will he even meet with us? The Montgomerys have been aligned with Silver Creek's traditional faction." "Thomas Montgomery is foremost a businessman," Sophia pointed out. "His son may concern himself with social hierarchies, but county records show the father has developed 5 successful ventures in the past 15 years. He understands opportunity." The meeting with Montgomery was arranged for the following afternoon at his office in town. Sophia spent the morning preparing materials demonstrating Everest's operational efficiency and the geological analysis suggesting the value of coordinated development between the parcels. Thomas Montgomery proved to be a sharp contrast to the younger Whitmore in his 60s, with a weathered face and practical attire that had actually seen use in mine tunnels. He evaluated Blackwell and Sophia with shrewd assessment rather than automatic judgment. "I'll be direct," he said after preliminary introductions. "My son believes your partnership arrangement flouts necessary social conventions. He's not entirely wrong about the importance of stable social structures in frontier communities." Sophia maintained professional composure. "Mr. Montgomery, social structures and business innovations need not be mutually exclusive. Everest's success demonstrates the value of recognizing talent regardless of conventional categories." Montgomery's expression remained neutral, but his eyes reflected interest. "Indeed, your production figures are impressive, Blackwell. 20% higher yields with lower accident rates than comparable operations. That suggests sound management. Miss Kostova deserves significant credit for our improved efficiency," Blackwell said. "Her systems for resource allocation and inventory control have reduced waste by nearly 30%. Montgomery turned his assessment to Sophia. "You maintain the books for a family business back east?" "Yes," she replied carefully, constructing a truth from fragments of her past. "I implemented similar controls there, resulting in improved profitability despite challenging market conditions." Montgomery leaned back, studying them both. "And this joint development proposal for my northeastern parcel, why not simply offer to purchase outright?" Blackwell explained their reasoning, the geological indications suggesting a vein that crossed property boundaries, the mutual advantage of coordinated rather than competing development, the capital efficiency of shared infrastructure. Throughout the presentation, Sophia noted Montgomery's attention to detail and financial implications, He asked pointed questions about cost projections and risk allocation, demonstrating sophisticated understanding of mining economics despite his less flamboyant demeanor compared to Whitmore. "Your proposal has merit," Montgomery finally acknowledged. Whitmore offered cash purchase at premium, but his track record managing the Golden Summit operation doesn't inspire confidence. Joint development with clearly defined parameters might indeed serve both our interests better. They spent the next hour negotiating specific terms, profit percentages, labor contributions, oversight mechanisms, dispute resolution procedures. Sophia's quick calculations and counter-proposals earned appreciative nods from Montgomery, who clearly hadn't expected such financial acuity from a woman, regardless of her partnership status. As they prepared to depart with a preliminary agreement in hand, Montgomery addressed Sophia directly. "Miss Kostova, my daughter-in-law, will continue to maintain social distance. It's her way. But in my experience, competence eventually overcomes prejudice in business matters, if not always in drawing rooms. Whitmore underestimated you. I won't make the same error." The significance of Montgomery's tacit support extended beyond the immediate business arrangement. His position as one of Silver Creek's founding citizens carried weight with other business owners. If Thomas Montgomery could engage professionally with the unconventional Everest partnership, others might reconsider their resistance. The afternoon. Before the Wellington representative's arrival, Sophia was reviewing final preparations in her office when a commotion outside drew her attention. Hurrying to the window, she saw Hollister and several miners rushing toward one of the tunnel entrances. The alarm bell began ringing, the signal for emergency. She ran from the office, anxiety tightening her chest. The scene at the tunnel entrance was controlled chaos. Miners emerging coughing from smoke-filled darkness, others organizing rescue equipment and water buckets. "What happened?" she demanded, spotting Reynolds directing operations. "Explosion in the North Tunnel exploratory shaft," he answered grimly. "We're not sure yet if it was a gas pocket or deliberate." "Deliberate?" Sophia stared at him in shock. "You mean sabotage?" Before Reynolds could respond, Blackwell emerged from the tunnel supporting an injured worker. His face was streaked with soot, his expression a mixture of anger and concern. "Everyone accounted for?" he asked Reynolds, helping the injured miner onto a stretcher. "All present except Lee. He was furthest in, taking samples." Blackwell immediately turned back toward the tunnel entrance, but Reynolds caught his arm. "Too much smoke still. We need to vent it properly, or you'll never reach him." The next hour was agonizing. Sophia helped organize medical aid for the injured, while ventilation measures cleared enough smoke to permit a rescue attempt. Blackwell himself led the team back into the tunnel, despite Hollister's protests about the continuing danger. They emerged 20 minutes later, Blackwell and another miner carrying the unconscious form of Lee Wei between them. The company doctor immediately went to work, administering oxygen and treating a serious gash on Lee's forehead. "He was trapped behind a partial collapse," Blackwell reported, his voice raw from smoke. "Conscious when we found him, but passed out during extraction. The explosion originated at the newest exploration point, exactly where we found the richest samples." "Coincidence?" Sophia asked quietly. Blackwell's expression was grim. "The support timbers showed signs of tampering. Someone weakened them, deliberately, then likely used a small explosive charge to trigger the collapse." "Whitmore," she whispered, "we can't prove it yet, but the timing, one day before the Wellington representative arrives, is difficult to dismiss as chance." Blackwell coughed violently, accepting the water Sophia handed him. "We've lost access to our most promising samples and data for tomorrow's presentation." The doctor approached them after stabilizing Lee. "He'll recover, but not quickly. Concussion, smoke inhalation, possibly cracked ribs. He needs complete rest for at least a week." As evening fell, the full impact of the sabotage became clear. The North Tunnel would require extensive repairs before exploration could resume. Critical sample materials had been destroyed in the explosion. Li Wei, whose detailed knowledge of the geological formations had been central to their expansion, proposal was incapacitated. In Blackwell's office, Sophia and the mine leadership assessed their position for the Wellington meeting. "We still have the production records and financial statements," Sophia noted. "They demonstrate Everest's operational excellence even without the new samples. But the expansion proposal was predicated on the northern vein's potential," Reynolds countered. "Without those samples and Lee's analysis, we're asking for investment based on significantly less compelling evidence." Blackwell, cleaned up but obviously exhausted, studied the mine diagram spread across his desk. "We proceed as planned. The Wellington representative will understand that mining involves setbacks. We present what we have, honestly addressing today's incident without speculation about causes until we have proof." Sophia remained after the others departed, concern overriding professional boundaries. "You should have the doctor examine you." "That smoke exposure? I'm fine," Blackwell interrupted, though his periodic coughing suggested otherwise. "We need to focus on salvaging tomorrow's presentation. Nathan." She used his given name for the first time, drawing his startled attention. "Everest's future depends on your leadership. Don't compromise your health needlessly." Something shifted in his expression, recognition of her genuine concern beyond business partnership. "An hour's rest then. But we'll need to work through the night reorganizing our proposal." By dawn, they had reconstructed a credible presentation. Sophia's meticulous financial projections demonstrated Everest's capacity for expansion, even without the dramatic new samples. Blackwell's operational plans emphasized the mine's safety record and efficient resource utilization. It wasn't the compelling case they'd originally prepared, but it presented solid business fundamentals that any astute investor would recognize. The Wellington representative, Harrison Phillips, arrived precisely at 10 o'clock. A well-dressed gentleman whose London accent immediately reminded Sophia of diplomatic visits to the Varitanian court. His assessment of the Everest operation was methodical and thorough, asking pertinent questions about everything from equipment maintenance to worker retention rates. If he had heard Whitmore's insinuations about impropriety in the partnership arrangement, he gave no indication. Instead, he engaged with Sophia directly on financial matters, testing her knowledge with increasingly complex questions about capital allocation and risk management. "Miss Kostova, your projection models are impressively sophisticated," he commented. During their office discussion, few mining operations employ such rigorous financial analysis. "Everest believes modern mining requires modern business practices," she replied. "The industry's traditional boom or bust cycle can be moderated through proper fiscal management and strategic development." Phillips nodded thoughtfully. "An enlightened perspective. Mr. Blackwell, your operational innovations similarly reflect forward thinking. The Wellington Group appreciates partners who balance ambition with sustainability." As they concluded the formal presentation, Blackwell addressed the tunnel incident directly. "We experienced a setback yesterday that damaged our northern exploration shaft. We're investigating the cause, but wanted to be transparent about the situation." Phillips' expression remained neutral. "Mining has inherent risks. The Wellington Group evaluates management's response to setbacks as carefully as their celebration of successes. How quickly do you anticipate repairs will restore exploration capabilities?" The directness of the question suggested Phillips was still genuinely considering investment despite the sabotage. Blackwell outlined the recovery timeline, while Sophia presented the contingency budget allocations she'd prepared overnight. After Phillips departed for his hotel to consider the proposal overnight, Sophia and Blackwell walked slowly back toward the mine offices, both exhausted from the presentation following their sleepless night. "He didn't dismiss us outright," Blackwell noted. "That's encouraging given yesterday's setback. Phillips strikes me as a man who evaluates fundamentals rather than appearances," Sophia agreed. "The Wellington Group's reputation for shrewd but progressive investments aligns with that assessment." Blackwell stopped walking, turning to face her directly. The afternoon sun highlighted the fatigue in his features, but also the determination that had first drawn her respect. "Whatever Phillips decides, Sophia, I want you to know that offering you partnership was the best decision I've made for Everest. Not despite yesterday's crisis, but especially because of it. Your resilience in reorganizing our entire presentation overnight demonstrated exactly why you belong in this position." The unexpected personal acknowledgement, combined with his continued use of her given name, created a warmth that had nothing to do with business partnership. Before Sophia could formulate a response that wouldn't betray her growing personal regard, Hollister approached with urgent news. "Riders coming up the road," the foreman reported. "Whitmore and the sheriff, plus 2 others. Blackwell's expression hardened. "It seems our competition isn't finished yet." Sheriff Caldwell was a man whose authority stemmed more from his imposing physical presence than any particular aptitude for law enforcement. His arrival at Everest, flanked by Whitmore and 2 stern-faced men Sophia didn't recognize, suggested he'd been persuaded to extend his jurisdiction into more complex matters. "Mr. Blackwell," the sheriff called as their horses reached the minyard. "Got some questions that need answering." Blackwell stepped forward, positioning himself slightly in front of Sophia in a protective gesture she found both unnecessary and oddly touching. "Sheriff Caldwell, to what do we owe this official visit?" Whitmore dismounted first, his expression smug beneath a pretense of civic concern. "There's been an accusation of serious financial impropriety involving Everest Mine. Sheriff Caldwell is here to investigate." "What accusation exactly?" Blackwell's voice remained even, though Sophia noted the tension in his shoulders. The sheriff looked uncomfortable, glancing at Whitmore before responding. "Claim of embezzlement. Former employee named James Porter signed a statement saying funds were misappropriated. Says there's evidence in your books." Sophia stepped forward, professional indignation overriding caution. "That's preposterous. Porter was himself embezzling from Everest for months. We've documented his theft extensively." "Convenient accusation against a man who's not here to defend himself," Whitmore remarked. "Sheriff, I believe an examination of the Everest financial records is in order. These gentlemen," he indicated the 2 strangers, "are independent accountants from Helena who can review the books properly." Blackwell's expression remained impassive, but Sophia caught the slight narrowing of his eyes that signaled controlled. "Enger, Sheriff, this is clearly an attempt to disrupt our operations during a crucial negotiation period. Mr. Whitmore has made no secret of his desire to undermine Everest's relationship with potential investors." "Got no interest in your business rivalries," Caldwell replied, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. "But a formal complaint's been filed. Need to follow procedure." "The complaint is based on statements from a man who fled the territory after stealing from this company," Sophia interjected. "I've reconstructed the accounts completely since arriving. Every transaction is documented and legitimate." Whitmore's smile didn't reach his eyes. "If that's the case, Miss Kostova, surely you won't object to independent verification, unless there's something in those ledgers you'd prefer remains hidden." The insinuation was clear and strategically timed. With the Wellington representative still considering their investment proposal, any suggestion of financial irregularity could prove disastrous. Refusing examination would appear suspicious, while allowing these clearly biased, independent accountants access to their records, risked deliberate misinterpretation. Blackwell turned to Sophia, their eyes meeting in silent communication. After a moment's consideration, she gave a slight nod. They had nothing to hide. Her reconstruction of the accounts had been meticulous, precisely because she'd anticipated potential scrutiny. "We have no objection to proper financial review," Blackwell told the sheriff. "However, I insist on conditions to ensure actual independence. These gentlemen," he gestured to Whitmore's accountants, "are unknown to us and arrived with a party clearly hostile to Everest's interests." "Reasonable precaution," agreed a new voice from the path leading toward the mine offices. Harrison Phillips approached, his expression revealing he'd overheard the exchange. "Perhaps I might offer a solution." All eyes turned to the Wellington representative, whose unexpected appearance shifted the dynamic immediately. Whitmore's confident expression faltered as he recognized someone whose financial authority likely exceeded his own. "Mr. Phillips?" Blackwell acknowledged him with evident relief. "I believed you'd returned to town." "I was discussing some technical questions with your head engineer," Phillips explained. "I couldn't help overhearing this conversation." He turned to the sheriff. "Harrison Phillips, representing the Wellington Investment Group. We are currently evaluating Everest. Mine for potential partnership." Sheriff Caldwell straightened, clearly recognizing the significance of the Wellington Group's involvement. "Mr. Phillips, didn't mean to interrupt business dealings." "No interruption at all," Phillips assured him smoothly. "In fact, this situation aligns with our standard due diligence process. The Wellington Group always conducts independent financial verification before finalizing investments." He gestured to Whitmore's accountants. "These gentlemen work for whom precisely?" Whitmore hesitated, his plan clearly derailed by Phillips's intervention. "They're respected professionals from Helena." "Excellent. Then they won't object to working alongside the Wellington Group's own financial examiner, who happens to be staying at the same hotel in Silver Creek. Between these gentlemen and our representative, we can ensure a thorough and truly independent review of Everest's accounts." Phillips's tone was pleasant but firm, effectively neutralizing Whitmore's strategy. The sheriff, visibly relieved to have the situation resolved without his further involvement, nodded agreement. "Sounds proper. Examination can proceed tomorrow with all parties present." Whitmore could hardly object without revealing his true intentions. "Of course," he managed, though his expression suggested this outcome was far from what he'd planned. "Transparency benefits everyone." As the sheriff and Whitmore's party departed, Phillips turned to Blackwell and Sophia with a contemplative expression. "Interesting timing for financial accusations. Whitmore has been attempting to undermine Everest since he learned of our partnership arrangement," Sophia explained, still processing how effectively Phillips had diffused the situation. "This is merely his latest tactic." "Miss Kostova rejected Whitmore's offer of marriage," Blackwell added. "Shortly afterward, I offered her a business partnership based on her financial expertise. His pride hasn't recovered from either development." Philip's eyebrows rose slightly. "I see. That explains certain whispers in town." He glanced between them thoughtfully. "The Wellington Group evaluates investments based on viability and management capability, not local social dynamics. However, understanding all factors affecting an operation is part of our process." "Whitmore's interference is a factor we're actively managing," Sophia assured him. "Today's incident with the sheriff is unlikely to be his last attempt, but we've anticipated most potential avenues of attack." "Most, but perhaps not all," Blackwell admitted, his expression turning serious. "Mr. Phillips, I believe yesterday's tunnel explosion was sabotage, not an accident. We can't prove Whitmore's involvement yet, But the timing and target, our most promising expansion area just before your visit, suggest deliberate interference. Phillips absorbed this information with professional calm. Serious accusation. Do you have any evidence? The support timbers showed signs of tampering, Blackwell replied. We're conducting a thorough investigation, but the damage itself complicates evidence collection. I understand. Phillips straightened his jacket, a gesture Sophia recognized from diplomatic posturing at court, preparation to deliver a significant assessment. Mining is both a technical and human enterprise. The quality of ore matters, but so does the character of those extracting it. His gaze moved deliberately between Blackwell and Sophia. I've seen enough to form preliminary conclusions about Everest's management. Tomorrow's financial review will either confirm or challenge those impressions. After Phillips departed, Blackwell and Sophia returned to the office to prepare for the next day's examination. The accounts were in impeccable order thanks to Sophia's systematic reconstruction, but they needed to organize supporting documentation for every transaction Whitmore's accountants might question. Phillips's intervention was fortunate, Sophia noted, as they sorted through receipt files. Having the Wellington Group's examiner present neutralizes whatever instructions Whitmore might have given his men. Blackwell nodded, though his expression remained troubled. Whitmore miscalculated by bringing the sheriff here while Phillips was still on the property. But he's not finished. Tomorrow's review is merely one obstacle. You're concerned about something specific, Sophia observed, recognizing the particular tension in his posture. What aren't you telling me? He hesitated, then sighed. Hollister discovered more evidence of tampering in the tunnel. The explosive used matches a type specific to the Golden Summit mine, Whitmore's operation. That's direct evidence of his involvement in the sabotage. Evidence, but not proof that would stand in court. We can't establish a chain of possession. Who had access to the explosives, who placed them in our tunnel? Blackwell ran a hand through his hair in frustration. Whitmore's careful to maintain distance between himself and any questionable activities. He employs men willing to take risks for proper compensation, but none who would implicate him directly if caught. Sophia considered this assessment, her mind working with the strategic analysis once applied to matters of state. Then we need to change our approach. Instead of reacting to each attack, we should address the root of his motivation. Which is? Control, Sophia said simply. Whitmore's actions have been consistent since I arrived in Silver Creek. His rejection of me when I showed independence, his response to our partnership, the attempts to block expansion through land acquisition, even sabotage, all reflect a man who cannot tolerate developments outside his control. Accurate analysis, but how does it help us counter his next move? Sophia smiled. We give him something he can control, something that satisfies his need for public victory while securing what Everest actually needs. They worked late into the night, developing a strategy that acknowledged Whitmore's psychological motivations while protecting Everest's essential interests. By morning, they had prepared not only the financial records for examination, but also a contingency plan should the expected investment from the Wellington Group become compromised. The financial review proceeded more smoothly than anticipated. Phillips's examiner, a sharp-eyed woman named Mrs. Agnes Fraser, who had apparently been traveling as Phillips's secretary during their initial meetings, proved formidable. Her presence clearly discomforted Whitmore's accountants, whose attempts to question certain legitimate expenses were systematically dismantled by her precise knowledge of mining operations accounting. These ventilation system upgrades appear excessive, one of Whitmore's men suggested, indicating an expenditure that represented significant improvement over industry standards. Everest's accident rate is 40% below comparable operations, Mrs. Fraser responded before Sophia could defend. The expense. Proper ventilation prevents both immediate disasters and long-term health complications among workers. The investment demonstrates prudent safety prioritization rather than excess. By midday, even Whitmore's accountants were forced to acknowledge that Everest's books showed no evidence of embezzlement or financial impropriety. If anything, the examination revealed operational efficiency and fiscal discipline that impressed Phillips visibly. Your reconstruction of these accounts shows remarkable thoroughness, Miss Kostova, he commented as the review concluded. Few mining operations maintain such precise records. Precision prevents both error and misconduct, Sophia replied. Everest believes transparency serves long-term interests better than momentary convenience. That afternoon, Whitmore appeared at the mine office alone, his expression a mixture of frustration and calculation. Blackwell received him in the main office with Sophia present, a deliberate statement that partnership decisions would be made jointly. Your accountants found no irregularities, Blackwell stated without preamble. Sheriff Caldwell has been informed. I trust this concludes your concerns about Everest's financial management. Whitmore waved this aside impatiently. A preliminary examination, more thorough investigation might reveal deeper issues. The Wellington Group's examiner seemed quite satisfied with the depth of review, Sophia noted. Their standards for investment due diligence are notably rigorous. Whitmore's jaw tightened at the reminder of his failed strategy. The Wellington investment isn't finalized. There are other factors they'll consider beyond bookkeeping. Indeed, Blackwell agreed. Which is why Miss Kostova and I have been discussing a proposition that might benefit all parties. Whitmore's suspicion was evident, but curiosity prevailed. What proposition? A cooperative agreement regarding the northeastern expansion, Sophia explained. We've secured joint development rights with Thomas Montgomery for his parcel. We propose including Golden Summit Mine in a three-way development consortium for the Northern Ridge. The suggestion clearly caught Whitmore off guard. Consortium? What exactly would that entail? Blackwell outlined the framework. Shared infrastructure costs, coordinated tunnel development to maximize efficiency, proportional profit distribution based on investment contribution. The arrangement would give Whitmore partial involvement in the expansion without ceding control of Everest's core operations. Montgomery agreed to this? Whitmore asked skeptically. Contingent on all parties signing legally binding non-interference agreements, Sophia confirmed. No more sabotage attempts, no more allegations to undermine any participant's financing or operations. Whitmore's expression revealed he understood the implication. They had evidence of his involvement in the tunnel explosion. These are serious accusations. Not accusations, Blackwell corrected. Contingencies. The consortium agreement establishes penalties for any action that damages collective interests. All parties would be equally bound. Sophia watched Whitmore calculate his options. The consortium offered him public association with what promised to be a profitable expansion, potentially saving face after his failed attempts to block Everest. However, it also required abandoning his campaign to undermine their operation and accepting their legitimate partnership. I'd need to review the specific terms, Whitmore finally said, and consult my attorneys. Of course, Sophia agreed. We've prepared a preliminary framework document for your consideration. She handed him the proposal they'd drafted overnight. The Wellington Group has expressed interest in funding the consortium approach, seeing it as a risk mitigation strategy that improves overall investment potential. This was a calculated exaggeration. They had mentioned the possibility to Phillips only briefly, though he had acknowledged its potential merit. Whitmore didn't need to know the idea's preliminary status. After Whitmore departed with the proposal, Blackwell turned to Sophia with a mixture of admiration and amusement. Cooperative agreement, brilliant misdirection. He thinks we're offering a compromise from weakness, when actually we're securing exactly what we wanted. Men like Whitmore need to believe they're winning, Sophia observed. The consortium gives him that impression while binding him to legal constraints that protect our interests. His pride gets public satisfaction, while our operations gain protection. It's still remarkable that you'd suggest including him after everything he's done, Blackwell said, studying her with curiosity. Many would seek revenge rather than strategic accommodation. Sophia considered this assessment. Revenge is emotionally satisfying, but rarely profitable. The consortium approach secures Wellington's investment by reducing development risks, neutralizes Whitmore as an active threat, and actually improves Everest's expansion efficiency through shared infrastructure costs. That it allows Whitmore to save face is merely a practical consideration, not mercy. Blackwell smiled. You continue to impress, Sophia Kostova. Whitmore rejected you for foreign mannerisms, yet that same quality has now outmaneuvered him completely. The following morning brought a decisive development. Phillips arrived at Everest with formal confirmation. The Wellington Group was prepared to invest in the expansion project under certain conditions. Primary among these was implementation of the consortium approach Sophia had proposed, which Phillips's superiors viewed as an elegant solution to the territorial competition that had historically undermined mining profitability in the region. Consolidation of complementary resources with maintained operational independence, Phillips explained. It's a model the Wellington Group has supported successfully in manufacturing contexts. Applying it to mining represents innovation we are eager to associate with. The investment would provide capital for Everest's planned expansion while establishing a framework that effectively neutralized Whitmore's ability to interfere without costly consequences to himself. It was, as Sophia had envisioned, a solution that addressed underlying motivations rather than merely reacting to symptoms. As they finalized preliminary agreement terms with Phillips, a messenger arrived from town with news that shifted the dynamic yet again. Whitmore had suffered a minor but dramatic accident. His horse had thrown him on the main street, resulting in a broken wrist and considerable public embarrassment. More significantly, the incident had occurred as he departed from an extended meeting with Thomas Montgomery, where witnesses reported hearing raised voices before Whitmore stormed out in evident agitation. It seems Mr. Montgomery rejected his attempt to circumvent our joint development agreement, Sophia surmised. Whitmore's pride has suffered multiple blows in rapid succession, Blackwell frowned, which might make him more dangerous or create opportunity for genuine resolution, Phillips suggested. My experience suggests men like Whitmore calculate cost against benefit. If the consortium offers his most viable path to success while preserving some dignity, rational self-interest may prevail over vendetta. Sophia considered both perspectives. We proceed with the consortium framework but maintain vigilance. Whitmore has demonstrated both persistence and creativity in his opposition. That evening, as they celebrated the Wellington Group's preliminary investment commitment with a small gathering for Everest's management team, Sophia found a moment of quiet reflection on the mine office porch. The sunset painted the mountains in dramatic orange and purple, a fitting backdrop for contemplating the remarkable journey from rejected mail-order bride to mining investor in just 2 months. Blackwell joined her, offering a cup of coffee as he leaned against the porch railing. A penny for your thoughts, partner. I was reflecting on unexpected paths, she admitted. Had Whitmore found my accent charming rather than objectionable, I'd now be managing his household rather than helping direct a mining operation with Wellington Group investment. A significant loss for the mining industry, Blackwell noted with a smile, and for Everest specifically. For me as well, Sophia acknowledged. This partnership has allowed me to apply capabilities that would have remained dormant in a conventional marriage. Blackwell studied her in the fading light. The partnership has evolved beyond my initial conception. Your management of the Whitmore situation demonstrated strategic thinking I hadn't anticipated. We complement each other's strengths, Sophia observed. Your operational expertise and vision combined with my financial and organizational systems. A comfortable silence settled between them, broken only when Hollister approached with news that Li Wei's condition had improved significantly. The doctor now expected full recovery within weeks rather than months. As the celebration continued inside, Sophia remained on the porch a moment longer, savoring the hard-won victories of the day. Whitmore had unwittingly given her the greatest gift possible when he deemed her too foreign for marriage. That rejection had opened the path to partnership, respect, and the chance to build something meaningful through her own capabilities rather than through connection to a husband. The future still held challenges. Implementing the consortium would require diplomatic skill. Expanding operations would test their management systems, and Silver Creek Society would continue struggling with their unconventional arrangement. But Sophia faced these prospects with confidence rather than apprehension. The very accent and mannerisms that had once marked her as royal, qualities that had made her a target in Varitania and unsuitable in Silver Creek, had become assets in her new role, giving her the poise and precision needed to navigate business challenges. Someday, perhaps, she might share the full truth of her background with Blackwell. For now, it was enough that he valued the skills her royal upbringing had provided without needing to know their origin. The lost princess had found a new kingdom in the Montana mountains, one built on capability rather than birthright. The weeks following the Wellington Group's investment commitment brought remarkable transformation to the Everest Mining Company. Construction crews expanded existing facilities, while engineers mapped the Northern Tunnel's continuation through the joint development area. The consortium agreement, finalized after tense but productive negotiations, established clear boundaries and responsibilities among Everest, Golden Summit, and Montgomery's interests. Whitmore, his wrist still in a splint from his fall, had ultimately recognized the financial logic of cooperation, though his manner remained coldly formal whenever interaction with Sophia or Blackwell proved necessary. The public narrative that emerged, carefully cultivated by Sophia through strategic conversations with influential townspeople, positioned the consortium as a collaborative initiative to promote regional development, allowing Whitmore to save face while binding him to terms that protected Everest's core interests. For Sophia, this period brought new challenges beyond operational expansion. The Wellington investment had attracted attention throughout Montana Territory's mining community, bringing visitors from Helena, Butte, and even San Francisco to observe the innovative management approaches being implemented at Everest. The Western Mining Journal wants an interview, Blackwell informed her one morning, placing a telegram on her desk, specifically with you about financial systems integration across the consortium properties. Sophia looked up from the expansion budget she was reviewing, surprised. With me specifically, not the general management team. Apparently your reputation has spread. Blackwell seemed both proud and amused. According to this, several mining operations have reported improved efficiency after implementing variations of the inventory control systems you designed. She accepted the telegram, scanning its contents with a mixture of professional satisfaction and personal discomfort. Public attention had never been her objective, merely effective systems and proven results. As Varitanian royalty, she had been raised to command attention while simultaneously remaining mysterious, an impossible balance that had become second nature before the revolution. Now, that visibility could be dangerous if it attracted attention from the wrong quarters. This could be beneficial for Everest's standing, she said carefully, though I imagine certain elements in town will find it further evidence of inappropriate ambition. Though certain elements have been notably quieter since the Wellington Investment and Consortium Agreement, Blackwell observed. Success tends to transform inappropriate ambition into admirable initiative in public perception. Sophia had indeed noticed subtle shifts in the town's response to her position. Mrs. Grayson, at the general store, now processed Everest requisitions without comment. Several business owners had approached her with questions about record-keeping improvements for their own operations. Even Harrison Montgomery's wife had acknowledged her with a stiff nod during a chance encounter at the post office. Hardly warm acceptance, but a significant change from previous pointed snubs. The most meaningful transformation, however, had occurred within Everest itself. The mine's workforce, initially uncertain about taking direction from a woman, had gradually recognized Sophia's contributions to their stability and safety. Improved inventory systems meant critical supplies never ran short. Reorganized financial management had stabilized cash flow, ensuring payroll met even during production fluctuations. When Sophia implemented a new accident compensation program that provided continued partial wages during recovery periods, loyalty among the miners solidified decisively. Li Wei, fully recovered from his injuries sustained in the explosion, had been promoted to assistant engineer based on his demonstrated capabilities rather than seniority. This precedent encouraged other workers to develop specialized skills. Knowing advancement at Everest depended on merit rather than background or connections. The Northern Tunnel development is progressing faster than projected, Lee reported during the weekly management meeting, indicating survey markers on the expanded mine maps. The geological formations match our predictions, suggesting the main vein extends at least 700 feet beyond our previous estimates. Reynolds nodded agreement. Silver content remains consistently high in the new samples. If these conditions persist through the Montgomery parcel, production could increase by 45% once full operations are established. Blackwell turned to Sophia. Can our processing capacity handle that increase, or will we need additional equipment investment? I've anticipated expansion needs in the capital allocation plan, she replied, consulting her notes. Phase 1 of processing upgrades is already underway. Phase 2 would commence when tunnel development reaches the 600-foot marker, ensuring equipment is operational when the new extraction areas are ready. The seamless integration of operational planning and financial management reflected their evolving partnership. Over the month since her arrival, Sophia and Blackwell had developed a professional rhythm that leveraged their complementary expertise without requiring explicit discussion of boundaries or authorities. They simply functioned as extensions of a unified leadership approach, each trusting the other's judgment in their respective domains. This professional harmony had gradually developed personal dimensions that neither had openly acknowledged. Sophia found herself noticing details beyond business relevance, the way Blackwell's expression softened when visiting injured workers, his patience explaining technical concepts to new miners, the quiet determination with which he maintained Everest's progressive policies despite community resistance. For his part, Blackwell increasingly sought her perspective on matters beyond financial concerns, valuing her insights into personnel dynamics and strategic planning. Their evolving connection remained unstated, yet increasingly evident to those around them. Hollister had taken to discreetly withdrawing when their discussion of business matters extended into more personal territories. Mrs. Hollister had subtly reorganized evening meal deliveries to encourage them to share dinner on nights when work kept them at the office past normal hours. Even Reynolds, not known for interpersonal awareness, had begun routing non-urgent questions through other channels when he found them in conversation. The Western Mining Journal interview brought these unspoken dynamics into sharper relief. The reporter, a perceptive woman named Margaret Coleman, who had established her journalistic credentials covering mining developments throughout the West, arrived with a photographer and list of prepared questions about Everest's operations. What began as a technical discussion about financial systems and consortium management evolved into a more nuanced exploration of leadership philosophy. "Your partnership structure is highly unusual in this industry," Coleman noted after Sophia had explained the efficiency improvements achieved through their integrated approach. "What made you decide to offer Miss Kostova partnership rather than conventional employment, Mr. Blackwell?" Blackwell considered the question seriously. "Mining operations traditionally separate technical decisions from financial management, with the latter considered a secondary support function. I recognize that approach wastes potential by maintaining artificial hierarchies instead of leveraging complementary expertise." He glanced at Sophia. Miss Kostova demonstrated exceptional capability. Partnership acknowledged her contributions, would be fundamental to Everest's success, not merely supportive. "And you, Miss Kostova," Coleman turned to Sophia, "you arrived in Silver Creek expecting a very different future. Was the transition to business leadership difficult?" "Less difficult than conforming to expectations that denied my natural capabilities would have been," Sophia replied carefully. "The skills required for effective business management, organizational discipline, strategic thinking, careful resource allocation are not inherently gendered, despite social conventions suggesting otherwise." Coleman smiled slightly. "Yet, your position has generated considerable controversy locally. How have you managed the social resistance?" "By focusing on results rather than reaction," Sophia stated. "Effectiveness ultimately speaks more persuasively than conformity. When systems demonstrate consistent improvement, practical benefits eventually outweigh ideological objections." The interview continued for nearly 2 hours, covering everything from specific management innovations to broader perspectives on the mining industry's evolution. Throughout, Coleman's perceptive questions revealed she understood the significance of Everest's approach, extended beyond operational efficiency to fundamental questions about merit-based advancement and organizational structure. When the formal interview concluded and Coleman's photographer began capturing images of the mine's operations, the reporter spoke privately to Sophia as they observed Blackwell discussing tunnel support improvements with the engineering team. "Your partnership is remarkable, and not merely in professional terms," Coleman commented. "I've interviewed dozens of mining operations. The typical dynamic between owners and managers involves careful distance and clear authority boundaries. You and Mr. Blackwell demonstrate something quite different: genuine collaboration and mutual respect." Sophia maintained professional composure despite the personal observation. Successful partnership requires trust in each other's judgment and recognition of complementary capabilities. "Indeed." Coleman's expression suggested she recognized the deliberately neutral response. The most effective business relationships often evolve beyond their initial parameters, just as the most meaningful personal connections frequently begin with shared purpose rather than conventional expectations. Before Sophia could formulate an appropriate reply to this rather pointed observation, they were interrupted by the arrival of an unexpected visitor. A carriage bearing the Golden Summit mine emblem pulled into the yard, and from it emerged not Edgar Whitmore, but an elegantly dressed woman Sophia had never seen before. The woman's bearing was striking, poised and confident, with a regal carriage that immediately caught Sophia's attention. Unlike Victoria Whitmore's rigid disapproval or Mrs. Montgomery's chilly formality, this visitor carried herself with the natural authority of someone accustomed to moving through the world on her own terms. Blackwell joined them as the woman approached, his questioning glance to Sophia confirming he found this visit as surprising as she did. "Mrs. Whitmore," he greeted her with professional courtesy. "This is unexpected." Sophia felt a jolt of surprise. This poised woman was Edgar, Whitmore's wife. She had assumed from his behavior and Victoria's prominent role that he was unmarried. "Mr. Blackwell." The woman's voice carried a slight accent that Sophia recognized with shock. Eastern Varitanian, educated but not court-trained. "I apologize for arriving unannounced. I've only recently returned from an extended stay with family in New York. May I introduce my partner, Miss Sophia Kostova," Blackwell said. "Miss Kostova, this is Mrs. Isabel Whitmore." The woman turned to Sophia, and a flash of recognition crossed her features so quickly that Sophia wondered if she had imagined it. "Miss Kostova, your reputation precedes you. Mrs. Whitmore." Sophia acknowledged her with a polite nod, studying the woman carefully. There was something familiar about her features, though Sophia couldn't place the connection. "I require a private conversation," Isabel Whitmore stated, directly, "on a matter of some delicacy." "My office is available," Blackwell offered, but Isabel shook her head. "Actually, I was hoping to speak with Miss Kostova specifically." Blackwell looked to Sophia, respecting her authority to accept or decline the request. After a moment's consideration, Sophia nodded. "We can speak in my office, Mrs. Whitmore." As they walked toward the administration building, Sophia noted Margaret Coleman observing the interaction with evident journalistic interest. The reporter's perceptiveness suggested this unexpected encounter might find its way into her article, adding another dimension to Everest's public narrative. In the privacy of her office, Isabel Whitmore studied Sophia with an intensity that seemed to search for something beyond professional connection. When she finally spoke, it was in fluent Varitanian, a language Sophia had not heard spoken properly since leaving her homeland. "Your Highness, forgive my directness, but I believed you were dead with the rest of the royal family." Sophia froze, years of practiced caution warring with the shock of being addressed in her native tongue and with her former title. She responded in English, maintaining the pretense. "Mrs. Whitmore, I'm afraid you're mistaken. I don't understand." Isabel switched to English, but her expression revealed she wasn't fooled. "Miss Kostova, I was Isabel Reyes before my marriage. My father was Juan Reyes, chief gardener at the Summer Palace. I grew up watching you and your brothers play in the royal gardens. Your mother once praised my flower arrangements when I was 12. I would recognize Princess Sophia anywhere, despite the years and circumstances. The confirmation of this woman's Varitanian connection and her intimate knowledge of palace details made denial pointless. Still, caution prevailed. Mrs. Whitmore, Isabel, if what you suggest were true, it would be a dangerous knowledge to possess. The current regime still offers substantial rewards for information about surviving members of the royal family. I have no intention of betraying you, Isabel assured her. Like many Varitanians with connections to the old regime, my family fled during the revolution. I came to America with my uncle, eventually meeting Edgar Whitmore during his business travels to New York. Her expression grew troubled. I married believing I could build a new life far from Varitania's painful memories. Yet you find yourself in Silver Creek, facing another reminder of the past, Sophia said quietly, finally acknowledging the shared connection. When Edgar mentioned a mail-order bride with a distinctive Varitanian accent, I never imagined. Isabel shook her head in wonder. The princess, who once commanded palace servants, now building a mining empire in Montana. Sophia tensed. Does your husband recognize my background? Not at all. Edgar's knowledge of Varitania extends only to potential mining investments he once considered there. He wouldn't recognize royal speech patterns or mannerisms. Isabel's expression turned apologetic. I've been in New York for 3 months, visiting my cousin. I only returned yesterday to discover the situation between my husband and Everest. A situation largely of your husband's creation, Sophia pointed out, though without rancor. Edgar's ambition often overwhelms his judgment, Isabel acknowledged. His pride was wounded by your rejection, then compounded by your subsequent success with Mr. Blackwell. She hesitated, though I suspect his greatest error was failing to recognize the value before him. Even as a child, Your Highness, you showed remarkable intelligence in your studies. Court gossip suggested you understood state finances better than the Treasury Minister. Please, I'm simply Sophia Kostova now, Sophia said firmly. That life is gone. But yes, my education included extensive financial training. My father believed a ruler should understand every aspect of governance, including treasury management. Isabel studied her with renewed respect. Then Edgar truly did miss, recognizing something exceptional, though not in the way he realizes. What is your purpose in coming here today, Isabel? Sophia asked directly. Surely not merely to confirm my identity. 2 purposes, Isabel replied. First, to assure you of my absolute discretion. Your secret is safe with me. She took a deep breath. Second, to ask for your help regarding the consortium agreement. Edgar is struggling with the terms, not because they're unfair, but because his pride resists any arrangement he didn't initiate himself. The consortium represents the best opportunity for all properties involved, Sophia noted. Even with his personal animosity toward Everest, the financial benefits should be obvious. They are to those thinking rationally. Edgar's rationality is currently compromised by wounded pride. Isabel leaned forward slightly. I believe I can guide him toward acceptance, but I need to understand the agreement's details thoroughly to present them effectively. Sophia considered this request carefully. Isabel posed a dual risk. She knew Sophia's true identity, and she was married to their most problematic business rival. Yet her Varitanian connection created an unexpected bond, and her practical approach suggested genuine interest in resolving the situation constructively. I can explain the specific financial projections that make the consortium advantageous. Earn for Golden Summit, Sophia offered. But I must ask, why help us? Your husband has been actively working against Everest's interests. Isabel's expression softened with something like regret. Because I recognize what Edgar cannot. That cooperation creates more value than conflict, and perhaps... She hesitated, because seeing a daughter of Varitania succeed against such odds gives me hope that something good survived our homeland's tragedy. For the next hour, Sophia walked Isabel through the consortium agreement's financial structure, explaining how coordinated development would reduce Golden Summit's capital requirements while increasing its access to productive veins. Isabel proved remarkably astute, quickly grasping complex financial projections and identifying the key points that would most appeal to her husband's business instincts. As their meeting concluded, Isabel rose to leave, but paused at the door. One question, if I may. Does Mr. Blackwell know who you truly are? No, Sophia replied. He recognizes my education and capabilities, but not their royal origin. Yet he values precisely the qualities that arise from your background, Isabel observed. The strategic thinking, the diplomatic skill, managing difficult personalities, the financial acumen. He sees the essence of who you are without knowing how you came to be that person. Perhaps that's for the best, Sophia said quietly. The past cannot be reclaimed. Better to build a future on what I can contribute now than what I once represented. Isabel considered this. In Varitania, you were valued for your birthright before your abilities. Here, it seems the opposite has occurred. There's a peculiar justice in that. She extended her hand in a gesture of formal respect that hadn't been directed toward Sophia since the revolution. I wish you success, Miss Kostova, in all your endeavors. After Isabel departed, Sophia remained at her desk, thoughts swirling with unexpected emotions. For years, she had guarded her identity so carefully that it had almost become separate from her sense of self. Now, being recognized, being called Your Highness again, had momentarily reconnected her to a past she had forced herself to set aside. Yet Isabel's words contained an important truth. In Varitania, Sophia's value had been predetermined by her royal birth. Any recognition of her actual abilities had been secondary, often viewed as charming accomplishments rather than substantive contributions. Here in Montana, far from the trappings of royalty, she had built a position based entirely on demonstrated capability. Blackwell appeared at her office door, his expression questioning. Everything all right? That seemed an intense conversation with Mrs. Whitmore. We discovered an unexpected connection, Sophia explained carefully. She recognized my accent as specifically Varitanian. It seems her family emigrated from the same region during political upheavals some years ago. This was true enough without revealing the full extent of their connection. Sophia wasn't ready to share her complete history, not even with Blackwell. Such revelations required careful consideration of potential consequences. Interesting. Coincidence, Blackwell remarked. Was her visit otherwise productive? Potentially very productive. She believes she can persuade her husband to fully embrace the consortium agreement rather than merely tolerate it. Sophia provided a summary of their financial discussion while carefully omitting any mention of their shared homeland connection. That would be a significant development, Blackwell acknowledged. Whitmore's grudging participation creates unnecessary friction. His genuine commitment would streamline implementation considerably. The following week brought evidence that Isabel's intervention had indeed proven effective. Edgar Whitmore formally communicated his acceptance of all consortium terms without further modification, along with a proposed joint announcement to the regional mining community highlighting the innovative collaboration. Remarkable turnaround, Blackwell commented when the message arrived. Whatever Mrs. Whitmore said must have been persuasive indeed. Sometimes the most effective influence comes from unexpected quarters, Sophia observed. Mrs. Whitmore clearly understands her husband's motivations while maintaining her own distinct perspective. With Whitmore's resistance transformed into cautious cooperation, the expansion project accelerated. Construction crews worked double shifts to prepare for increased production. Engineers from all three consortium properties coordinated their efforts to ensure efficient tunnel development. The Wellington Group released the second phase of investment ahead of schedule, impressed by the swift implementation of the initial framework. As consortium operations stabilized, Sophia found herself with an unexpected opportunity. Harrison Phillips returned to Everest with a proposal that extended beyond their immediate mining partnership. The Wellington Group is establishing a regional headquarters in Helena, he explained during a planning meeting. We need someone to oversee financial integration for our Western mining investments, essentially applying the systems Miss Kostova has implemented here on a broader scale. Sophia looked up from her notes, surprised. You're offering me a position with Wellington. We're suggesting an additional role that complements your partnership here, Phillips clarified. 2 days monthly in Helena, coordinating financial structures across all Wellington mining investments in the territory. The position carries both substantial compensation and significant influence over regional mining practices. Blackwell's expression remained carefully neutral. Wellington clearly recognizes exceptional talent. That's commendable. Phillips turned to him. The arrangement would benefit Everest as well. Having a partner with direct connection to Wellington's broader operations provides valuable market intelligence and strengthens your investment relationship. The proposal is certainly intriguing, Sophia acknowledged, mind already calculating the practical implications. I would need to ensure Everest's operations remain properly managed during any absences. Our systems now function smoothly enough that short periods away should present minimal disruption, Blackwell noted, though Sophia detected something guarded in his tone. It's an opportunity worth considering. After Phillips departed, promising formal details would follow by courier, Sophia and Blackwell remained in the office, an unusual tension lingering between them. For several moments, neither spoke, the ticking of the wall clock marking the silence. "You should accept the Wellington position," Blackwell finally said, his voice carefully even. "It represents significant professional advancement." "There are many factors to consider," Sophia replied, studying him. "My primary commitment remains to Everest." "Of course." He arranged papers on his desk with uncharacteristic precision. "But partnership shouldn't limit your opportunities. Your capabilities deserve broader recognition." Something in his deliberately supportive tone suggested conflicted emotions beneath the professional encouragement. "Nathan," Sophia said gently, "what concerns you about this proposal?" He looked up, momentarily surprised by her directness, then sighed. "Nothing about the proposal itself. It's a logical extension of what you've accomplished here." He hesitated. "I suppose I've grown accustomed to our daily collaboration. The prospect of change, even positive change, requires adjustment." The admission revealed more than his usual measured statements about their partnership. Before Sophia could respond, Reynolds knocked at the door with urgent questions about a support column design, interrupting the moment of personal candor. Throughout the afternoon, Sophia found her thoughts returning to Blackwell's uncharacteristically revealing comment and what it might signify about their evolving relationship. Their partnership had developed layers beyond business considerations, mutual respect, transforming gradually into deeper regard that neither had fully acknowledged. That evening, she walked alone to the overlook point above the main tunnel entrance. The view stretched across the valley to where Silver Creek nestled among piney slopes, smoke rising from its chimneys in the gathering dusk. So much had changed since she'd arrived just months ago, rejected and alone. Now business leaders sought her expertise. Investors recognized her value, and she held partial ownership in a thriving enterprise. Yet something remained unresolved. Her royal past remained hidden from the man whose regard had come to matter most. Edgar Whitmore's recognition had awakened awareness of how completely Sophia had compartmentalized her former identity. The princess and the business administrator existed as separate entities in her mind, never fully integrated. As darkness settled over the mountains, Sophia made a decision. Before considering Wellington's offer, before moving forward in any direction, she needed to reconcile these divided aspects of herself. And that meant sharing the full truth with the one person whose opinion truly mattered. The opportunity came. The following evening, Blackwell had invited her to dinner at his private quarters to discuss expansion projections, a routine business meeting like dozens before. Yet as they finished their meal and the conversation turned to longer-term planning, Sophia recognized the moment had arrived. "Nathan," she said quietly, setting aside her coffee cup, "there's something I need to share with you, something about my background that I've never fully explained." He studied her with sudden attention. "I've always sensed there were aspects of your history you preferred not to discuss. You're entitled to your privacy. Privacy, yes, but partnership requires truth, especially when that truth might affect how we move forward. She took a deep breath. My accent and mannerisms that Edgar Whitmore found so objectionable, they weren't merely the result of European education. They were specifically the product of royal court training. His expression registered surprise, but not disbelief. Royal court? You mean you worked in a royal household? Not exactly. Sophia straightened almost unconsciously, her posture reflecting years of protocol training. I was born Princess Sophia Katerina Morova of Varitania. Until the revolution 10 years ago, I was third in line to the throne. Blackwell's eyes widened. For perhaps the first time since she'd known him, he appeared genuinely startled. Your actual royalty? I was. That life ended when revolutionaries stormed the palace. My parents and older brothers were killed. I escaped with a loyal lady's maid, eventually making my way to America with what little we could salvage. The words came easier than she'd expected, years of enforced silence finally breaking. My accent is the product of court elocution training. My financial knowledge comes from royal tutors who insisted a potential ruler must understand state, treasury management. The revolution in Varitania, Blackwell said slowly. I remember reports even in American newspapers. The royal family was reported entirely lost. A convenient narrative for the new regime, Sophia explained. Acknowledging survivors would create symbolic figureheads for counter-revolutionary movements. It was safer for everyone to believe the Morova line had ended. Yet you maintained your accent, the very thing that would identify your background. Some aspects of identity resist concealment, she admitted. I moderated it as much as possible, but speech patterns established from earliest childhood prove remarkably persistent. Blackwell was silent for a long moment, processing this revelation. Then he smiled unexpectedly. This explains certain mysteries, your exceptional poise in difficult situations, your strategic approach to Whitmore's opposition, your immediate grasp of complex organizational systems. His focus on capabilities rather than title brought profound relief. Then my background doesn't change how you view our partnership? It contextualizes your extraordinary abilities, he replied. But those abilities themselves, the ones I've witnessed firsthand, remain the foundation of my regard. He hesitated. May I ask what prompted this disclosure now? Isabel Whitmore recognized me, Sophia explained. Her family served in the royal household. She's promised discretion, but the encounter made me realize I've been living a divided existence. Before considering Wellington's offer or any future direction, I needed reconciliation between who I was and who I've become. And who have you become in your own estimation? Blackwell asked, his expression thoughtful. Sophia considered the question carefully. Someone defined by capability rather than circumstance. In Varitania, any accomplishment was attributed to my royal status before my actual abilities. Here I've built something based entirely on demonstrated value. She met his gaze directly. I find I prefer this foundation despite its challenges. The princess who became a mining administrator, Blackwell mused. Fairy tales, typically, move in the opposite direction, perhaps because they're written by those who value title above substance, Sophia suggested. A perspective I've never shared. His voice softened. Thank you for trusting me with your history. I understand the risk such disclosure represents. Partnership requires trust, she repeated simply. And you've earned mine completely. As they stood on the threshold between professional collaboration and something deeper, the mine's emergency bell suddenly rang out, shattering the moment with its urgent clamor. Both reacted instantly. Years of managing crises, creating immediate focus. That's the flooding signal, Blackwell said, already moving toward the door. The spring melt must have breached one of the lower tunnels. Once again, personal matters would wait as duty called, yet as they hurried toward the commotion, Sophia felt lighter than she had in years. The princess and the administrator had finally merged into a single identity, one ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, both professional and personal. The spring thaw had come earlier than expected to the Montana mountains, sending cascades of snowmelt down from the peaks into the valley below. The flooding in the lower tunnel was swiftly contained thanks to the drainage systems Blackwell had insisted upon installing against industry norms. What might have been a disaster for many mining operations became merely an inconvenience for Everest, though it required all hands working through the night to secure the affected areas. By dawn, Sophia and Blackwell stood at the tunnel entrance, watching as the last of the emergency crews emerged, tired but triumphant. No injuries had occurred and damage to equipment had been minimal. The incident had, however, revealed structural weaknesses in the adjoining Golden Summit section of the consortium development, weaknesses that would have gone undetected until catastrophic failure without this early warning. "We should convene an emergency consortium meeting," Sophia suggested as they walked back toward the offices. "Whitmore needs to address these support deficiencies immediately." "Agreed. I'll send messengers to both partners." Blackwell looked at her, fatigue evident in his features, but a new warmth in his expression. "Your crisis management was remarkable. The drainage redirection plan saved the eastern section entirely. Royal education included unexpected practical applications," Sophia replied with a slight smile. "Flood management for the capital city was standard curriculum for those who might someday govern." The casual reference to her true background felt strangely liberating. After years of careful omissions and constructed half-truths, the ability to speak openly about her past, at least with Blackwell, lifted a burden she hadn't fully acknowledged until its absence. The consortium meeting that afternoon proved unexpectedly productive. Edgar Whitmore, perhaps influenced by his wife's counsel, accepted the structural recommendations without his usual defensiveness. Thomas Montgomery offered experienced workers to assist with the reinforcement efforts. Within hours, a coordinated response was underway, with teams from all three properties implementing the safety improvements Blackwell and Reynolds had designed. As the immediate crisis subsided, attention returned to longer-term considerations. The Wellington Group's offer remained open, awaiting Sophia's decision. The regional headquarters in Helena represented an opportunity to influence mining practices throughout the territory, potentially implementing the progressive approaches she and Blackwell had proven successful at Everest. 1 week after the flooding incident, Sophia found Blackwell at the newly constructed observation platform overlooking the expanded operation. Below them, the consortium development bustled with activity, workers from all three properties moving. With coordinated purpose, the boundaries between competing interests blurred by shared goals. "It's remarkable what proper alignment of interests can accomplish," she observed, joining him at the railing. 3 months ago, these men viewed each other as rivals. Now they're rebuilding together. "Your consortium concept created that possibility," Blackwell replied. "Few would have seen beyond the immediate conflict to the mutual benefit beneath. Diplomatic training has occasional practical applications as well," Sophia said. "Finding common ground among competing interests was essential court education." Blackwell turned to face her, his expression serious. "Have you decided about the Wellington offer?" "I have." Sophia had spent considerable time weighing the opportunity against her commitments at Everest. "I'm going to accept a modified arrangement, 1 day monthly in Helena rather than 2. The reduced schedule allows me to maintain full involvement here while still contributing to regional improvements." Relief flickered across his features before being carefully masked. "A sensible compromise. Wellington gets your expertise, Everest maintains your presence, and you gain expanded influence. There's another factor in my decision, Sophia admitted, watching him closely, one of considerable importance. Oh? His tone was carefully neutral, though his eyes revealed deeper interest. My life has been defined by displacement, from Varitania to Boston, from Boston to Silver Creek, each move driven by necessity rather than choice. She gestured toward the thriving operation below them. Here, for the first time, I've built something lasting, created value through capability rather than circumstance. You've certainly transformed Everest, Blackwell acknowledged. Not just Everest. Sophia took a breath, moving beyond professional boundaries. For the first time, I've found someone who values me for my actual abilities rather than predetermined expectations. That connection has become significant to me. Understanding dawned in his expression. For a moment, the careful restraint that characterized their professional relationship wavered. Sophia, she continued before he could respond fully. Royal upbringing instills caution about personal declarations. Actions speak more reliably than words. My decision to limit time in Helena represents a choice, a commitment to what we've built together in all its dimensions. Blackwell stepped closer, the professional distance between them diminishing. When you arrived in Silver Creek, rejected, for qualities I found immediately valuable, I recognized someone extraordinary. Your royal background explains certain aspects of your exceptional nature, but doesn't define it. Your actions here, your courage, intelligence, integrity, those qualities would command my highest regard, regardless of their origin. When I was a princess, people valued the title before the person, Sophia said quietly. You saw the person. When the title was hidden, that perception matters more than you might realize. Perhaps we should formalize this mutual recognition, Blackwell suggested, his voice softer than she had ever heard it. A partnership beyond business considerations. Sophia smiled. Another unconventional proposal, Mr. Blackwell. Unconventional. Circumstances call for innovative approaches. He took her hand, the gesture bridging their carefully maintained professional boundaries. I'm suggesting a personal partnership equal to our business arrangement, one based on mutual respect and recognition of value rather than prescribed roles. The proposal echoed the business partnership that had transformed Everest Mining Company, yet addressed something far more personal. In Varitania, royal marriages were diplomatic arrangements designed to strengthen political alliances. Even after fleeing to America, Sophia had approached marriage as a practical necessity, security through connection to a provider. Blackwell offered something entirely different, a relationship founded on demonstrated capabilities and proven trust. A partnership where her independence represented an asset rather than a liability. I accept your proposal, she said simply. Both partnerships merit continuation and evolution. Their agreement required no elaborate declaration or conventional romantic display. Like their business partnership, it was founded on mutual recognition, a value and compatible vision rather than prescribed social forms. The understanding between them had developed naturally through shared purpose and demonstrated respect, creating a foundation far stronger than traditional courtship might have established. As spring turned to summer, the Everest Mining Company's expansion reached full production capacity. The consortium model gained recognition throughout Western mining operations as an innovative approach to resource development. Profits exceeded projections, allowing implementation of additional safety improvements and worker benefits that further distinguished the operation from industry standards. Sophia and Nathan Blackwell formalized their dual partnership in a small ceremony as unconventional as their professional collaboration. The marriage contract, drafted with the same care as their business agreement, established legal protections for Sophia's professional authority and financial independence that contradicted normal marital property assumptions. Highly irregular, the county clerk muttered upon recording the document, though increasingly typical of Everest's approach to established practices. Edgar Whitmore attended the ceremony with surprising graciousness, his antagonism gradually transformed through necessity into genuine respect for the operational excellence the consortium had achieved. Isabel Whitmore's congratulations carried the deeper significance of shared heritage, her quiet acknowledgement of a Varitanian royal finding new purpose in Montana mountains. Harrison Phillips, representing the Wellington Group, offered perhaps the most fitting observation during the celebration that followed. The most valuable innovations often emerge when traditional boundaries are questioned by those with both vision and capability. Everest's success demonstrates this principle extends beyond mining operations to human relationships themselves. For Sophia, standing beside the man who had recognized her value when Whitmore deemed her too foreign and formal, the moment represented perfect vindication. The very qualities that had made her unsuitable as a conventional bride had become the foundation of both her professional success and personal happiness. Her accent and royal mannerisms, once liabilities to be minimized, had become assets appreciated for the capabilities they represented. The diplomatic training that had once prepared her to reign over a small European kingdom now served her in navigating the complex interests of a growing mining enterprise. The financial education intended for state governance had found perfect application in corporate management. Most significantly, the independence and direct manner that Edgar Whitmore had found so objectionable had become the qualities Nathan Blackwell valued most, both in business and in their personal relationship. The mail-order bride, rejected for her strange accent, had not only found unexpected success, but had transformed that initial rejection into something far more valuable than she had originally sought. Rather than security through dependency, she had built security through capability. Rather than acceptance through conformity, she had earned respect through excellence. The lost princess had found a new kingdom in the Montana mountains, one built on demonstrated value rather than inherited position, on partnership rather than subjugation, on future potential rather than past privilege. "You know," Blackwell said quietly, as they stood together watching the sunset paint the mountains in gold and purple. Whitmore never realized what he rejected. He heard an accent and saw formality, but missed the extraordinary mind and spirit behind them. "His failure to recognize value created our opportunity," Sophia replied. "Sometimes rejection merely redirects us to where we truly belong." The princess, who had fled revolution with nothing but her education and determination, had built something more meaningful than her royal birthright had offered. A life where her actual capabilities, rather than her title, determined her worth. The mail-order bride, rejected for her strange accent, had found not just acceptance, but genuine appreciation for the very qualities once deemed unsuitable. As twilight settled over the Everest Mining Company, Sophia Kostova Blackwell, once Princess Sophia of Varitania, briefly a rejected mail-order bride, now respected business partner and cherished wife, surveyed the enterprise she had helped build with satisfaction. The journey from palace to mining office had been neither direct nor easy, but it had led precisely where she needed to be. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.